All right, let's do this. Let's go. People joining up. I like to see that. Joining the team. I got a show today. Show off my hair. Got a haircut, I think, last Friday. Might have been the Friday before. I don't know. Last 2 weeks, all the same thing. Wake up, deal with moving, do work, go to sleep, can't sleep, work, do it again. I did get a sweet new flag, though, that I had made. The Murphy flag. I have installed a new microphone, which may or may not be better. Waiting on more parts. I bought way too many adapters. This is one of those things where you try to make something better and you buy a gadget to do another gadget. And you end up with all these adapters, and not a single one of these goes from the thread pattern I need to the next thread pattern. So I ordered another 21-piece kit that will help me get there. So yes, hopefully audio will be better from here on out, but we'll see. That's where I'm leaving it to. All right, Magic Unicorn Farts and Bacon. Now that's a name. You don't see that every day. Welcome to the stream. What's up with the 800 gallon? Nothing. Just want to show my flag off, and I mean, I should be like, oh, there's secrets, but no, it's the same thing. I just thought, why not change it up a little bit? Who knows? All right, so someone was asking a question, and I thought it was a good question, and I totally forgot about it. So I'm going to try to find it real quick. Oh, yes, Amazon swords. This person, Brian Marias, said, I bought Amazon swords. A month ago, they looked beautiful. Now, most of the leaves are turning what would be clear, and they're just getting eat up, but they're not. So a couple things. There's two signs that I see as a guy who loves plants and has kept way too many Amazon swords. A couple things. When you get leaves that are turning clear or yellow, that's a sign they're not getting enough food. So typically that means a nitrogen deficiency. Amazon swords in general love tons of food at the roots. So lots of root tabs. Now, what's to know? When you buy a plant, maybe it's this big, it might take a month to eat a root tab, right? But what happens when it's this big and this wide and now this big and it's got babies? More and more root tabs. So what used to maybe take 1 per month now might take 10 or 15 per month, right? But we're creatures of habit, and I go, well, it's the first of the month. I put in my root tab. It does well. I move on. 2 or 3 months later, you put your root tab in, you move on. It's not looking so good. It got leaves dying. Things are going wrong. That's because we're not putting enough food in. It might last a few days. It goes, great, feel great. Oh, now I'm starving again, right? Now, you've got, so you also said it looks like they've been eaten up. Now, that's another telltale sign when it comes to sword plants. Sword plants are notorious for being eaten by plecos, especially like bristlenose plecostomus. They will just get on that leaf and they go, ooh, this tastes nice. And they'll just keep rasping on it. And it makes these little holes in the leaf. And they can tear through one overnight. And so we have to be very careful, like at the warehouse, in the store, and that kind of stuff, that where we store sword plants, whether it's an Amazon sword, red ocelot, or red flame, any of that, that it's not within earshot or eyesight of a pleco, because they'll munch on it. They love it, but also in your home aquarium, they're going to do that too. So you could be a new inhabitant doing it, could be not enough food, but those are 2 signs that really stuck out as like, ooh, could have problems going on. That's how I would solve it. All right. I've got high nitrates feeding the algae in my 29 gallon. I tested the tap water and the level's at 2.0 ppm, same as your tank. Best alternative to lower phosphate. Hold on. So the nitrates are feeding the algae. Tested the tap water level at 2 parts per million. Same as the tank, I guess. Maybe you meant 20 parts per million? Best alternative to lower the phosphate. So those seem to be 2 different things. Like nitrates and phosphates are different. If we're worried about nitrogen, so one of the things is if you get your plants to grow faster, they will consume everything, right? If you're missing something, then they can no longer consume it. So one of the big things to know is a plant might require 1 part potassium, 1 part phosphate, 1 part iron, 1 part nitrogen, and a bunch of other stuff, right? Algae, it can use any one of those 4 to grow. So if we're missing potassium, and we've only got these 3, the plant doesn't grow very well at all. It still grows a little bit, it grows weird, but it's missing one of its building blocks, right? The algae goes, ooh, I'll take some of this, take some of this, take some of this, no problem. Oh, we consumed all that, now we got these 2. I'll eat this, I'll eat this. I consumed all of that, I'll eat just this. And so that's why algae takes off in an aquarium, is it can use anything. Where the plant's going, I just need one more thing and I could be growing well. And so sometimes the answer to algae is actually putting in more nutrients. So even though you got stuff coming in out of the tap, you might be going, oh, I need to add some more potassium. Then the plant will use up the nitrates and the phosphates and we're good to go, right? But if you wanted to lower phosphates, get something like a phosphate absorbing product. Could be a pad like we sell, could be resins and that kind of stuff to take it out. But just know that that might actually be starving out some of your plants. And do know that, you know, one way is to starve out all the nutrients and your plants will suffer. Another way is to grow them all at the same time. I just got a message from an employee, and so, yeah. Distracted me. Can you keep yo-yo loaches and pea puffers in a 40 breeder? Either one of those can live in there for a while, like pea puffers forever, yo-yo loaches a very long time. I wouldn't combine the 2 though. So, are dojo loaches wild caught? Not typically. Typically they are farm raised because they're also a fish that gets eaten in several different countries. So, I'm sure there are some wild, but for what I know, they farm them, like a lot of them. How do you propagate pogostemon? That's a stem plant, so it grows, you know, keeps growing longer. All you got to do is cut it, and then maybe remove a couple leaves, stick that into the substrate, and eventually it's going to grow roots. That's how it's done at farms, and that's why we put it in the pot. The pot, so let me explain why we like to do potted plants. So imagine you got this big plant, and you grab it, you cut it, and now you got these stems with nothing on it. If I put a rubber band and a lead weight around that, they kind of sit at the bottom, and they basically rot and get mushy. They grow a little bit of roots, but it's not a long-term scenario. The goal is hopefully someone buys it, takes it home, puts it in gravel, and it grows before it dies. What we like is you take that same thing, now you open up that rock wool, and you lay the plants in it, you close it back up, and you kind of roll it back up like a little burrito, you put it in the pot, right? Now that rock wool is substrate so that the plant roots can grow into it. And in that rock wool, typically you're going to find little yellow or white beads. That's nutrients. So they grow, they find the nutrients, they make more roots, and you get roots growing out of the bottom of the pot. We then ship it to you, you buy it, you open it up, you go, hey, I got some roots. Now I can transfer that into my aquarium, and I've already got a leg up. Instead of when you buy a bunch of plants, normally cut all the rotten stuff off, then start over again. But that's how you would propagate the plant too, is you're kind of in that start over mode. Cut it, take off a couple leaves, plant it in the substrate, and wait for root growth. The other option you have, and one of the better ways actually, is to take a bunch of plants or a clipping like that and just let it float on the top of your aquarium water. It'll be very close to the light, and your roots will start growing out from, if the stem is all the way this long, you'll get roots all the way through it. Whereas when you put it in the ground, you only get roots down here, right? So you could get roots growing all the way through here. You can come and just chop, 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 chop. You got 8 of them with roots. You stick those in. A week later, poof, there's a garden for you. It's going to look real ugly at the beginning, but that's one way to propagate plants very quickly, especially if you were farming it out to sell it, or you couldn't afford very much and you needed to do a whole entire tank. You want the whole back of the 800 gallon to have pogo. You could just chop it up, keep planting, 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 and eventually this whole forest will come out of it. Yeah. Received my co-op order today. Here's some money to treat the warehouse crew to some donuts. The order was packed beautifully. You have a good crew. Well, thank you very much, Andy. If you're not a member yet, become a member. That's one of the best ways to support the channel, the crew, all of that. I've got a new program that I'm working on to roll out to the crew, in fact. And it kind of depends on that ongoing recurrable income is where I base a lot of this stuff on. And but yes, we do buy donuts. One of their favorites also is like coffee. We do a lot of coffee runs of, oh, today's gonna be brutal. Let's go get some coffee and whatever else you guys want. Not whatever else, but like if they rather prefer something else, we'll take a vote, you know. But yes, we are close to a bakery and we're close to a Starbucks, and close to Little Caesars and that kind of stuff. What would be your number one piece of advice for someone wanting to start a fish store? Probably don't do it. Starting a fish store right now is one of the few businesses I wouldn't start. Like an actual fish store. My question would be, what is it about a local fish store that is better than just being an online fish store or online e-commerce store? Now, if you're like, oh, well, I really want to get back to the hobby and do all of that, that's not really a business. That's more like, okay, great. You've got tons of money and you want to do a philanthropy project? Great. You know, that's like running a shelter or something like that. Go do that. But in terms of an actual running business, it's a very difficult landscape currently with, there's different types of shutdowns, economic things. You got to know a lot. You know, if you open up, like we opened up an online store in pretty much the worst state you possibly could. Like shipping from Washington to the rest of the country is terrible, but it works. If you open the wrong retail store in the wrong location, you just go out of business wicked quick. Now, I've covered this subject about 1,000 times. If you want to open up a store, you truly want to make a go of it, you got to go run someone else's store for at least a couple years. Learn the trade, learn the business, learn the vendors. Because short of that, you got like no chance. And people always go, that sounds like a lot of time and effort. I don't like to do time and effort things, and then they just fail horribly. I've watched so many very good people with great intentions that thought they were going to make it. And then it's like they get about 8 months into it and they're like, oh my gosh, this is impossible. And it's like, you didn't do the pre-planning, the work, like you have to go. There's no amount of, I'm going to sit home with a pad of paper and figure this out that's ever going to make you run a fish store as well as running a fish store. And unless you've got the bankroll of millions, you don't have that leeway. You just don't. When your one source of fish doesn't ship because of COVID, if you don't have 10 other sources to be ordering from, we have to order from 5 farms every week for plants, and every week we're still sold out of lots of plants, right? So imagine, I know plenty of people that only have one source, and they're like, oh, we just don't get plants. We haven't had plants in 7 weeks, right? That all comes from running a fish store, establishing connections, learning who's going to be able to help you and who's got good fill rates and all of that stuff. Welcome, Ariel. Joining the team. Welcome. I'm hoping to hit, what am I hoping to hit today? What was my goal? Let me hit the refresh button. My goal is hopefully to hit 1750 today. We're quite a ways off. I don't want to lead you guys into battle without knowing what you got to fight against. We have 1,718. So, we got 32 to go, which that's a big number. That's more than last week for sure. But I think we might be able to do it. My air pump gang valve has one air stone going with a lot of air and one going with hardly any air. How do I fix that? Well, normally what you should be able to do is adjust the actual gang valve. If a gang valve is doing its job correctly, good thing I've got my little fidget thing I do here. So this is a 4-way gang valve, which you might only have 2. So we'll just pretend these 2 are all the way closed, right? So you've got these 2. Now, if it's doing its job right, if they're both wide open, so there's no restriction at all, whatever one has the path of least resistance. So maybe this one goes into a really deep tank like the 800 gallon, and the other one goes into a little 10 gallon. Well, there's going to be less resistance pumping in this much water than that much water, so you're going to get way more air coming out of this one, right? Now, how do you combat that? Well, you have to retard it. What does that mean? That means close it off a bit. So maybe you go, we're going to close you half off, so we create resistance on the 10 gallon, and now more even air is coming out of the 800 gallon, and the goal is to get them about equal, or as much as you need in the 10 and as much as you need in the 800 gallon. That's if it's working correctly. Sometimes plastic ones and that kind of stuff don't always work exactly right. Maybe you got a leak or something like that. The other thing you can run into, imagine that the 800 gallon had a normal air stone on it, and that air stone was all clogged up with calcium or whatever gunk was there, and it was really creating a lot of back pressure. Barely any's going to come out. So you're having to put a ton of air into it to get a little bit out, whereas over here, a little bit in, a lot out. So using something like a never clog air stone or fresh air stones and making sure that there's no clogs. If you put, like on one line, you put 3 or 4 check valves in a row, that's a lot of back pressure, right? So making sure you only have one check valve and all these things that would create kind of a negative pressure experience, that's going to make it better for you being able to split those apart and actually get the effect you desire. All right. Lots of new members. Thank you very much. 30 more to go, Joel says. I appreciate the count. Do you have a helpful process in finding that sweet spot of light and nutrient balance to maximize growth and limit algae? So what I aim for is I aim to keep my nitrates if I'm dosing Easy Green. So the first thing is, if you're dosing Easy Green, this is the way I do it. I try to keep between 20 and 40 parts per million at all times. Right after a water change, before a water change, anytime, right? Between 20 and 40 parts per million, where most of the nitrogen is coming from Easy Green. Now, fish poop and fish food we put in there also is contributing, but I want the majority of it to come from Easy Green, because that means then I know, squirt, 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 I'm putting stuff in, and it's going to remove the level, and I can monitor that, right? And then with lighting, I like to keep it on a timer, and that timer I like to set at about 10 hours. So that's a constant. Every day, day in, day out, that 10 hours never changes, right? So if that's never changing, and there's only one other piece of this puzzle, the fertilizer, I can then adjust the fertilizer. And by adjusting that fertilizer, I now then can dial that in between 20 and 40. Now my goal with my own personal aquariums is to change almost no water. Most people change water to lower nitrogen, right? Well, if I'm trying to keep nitrogen between 20 and 40, and I know plants are eating it, my goal is, let's make it so I'm just dosing fertilizer and the plants are cleaning the water and we get very little fluctuation in the amount of nutrients. That sets up a stable environment. When we have a stable environment, we typically get less algae. Now, when you first set up an aquarium, you usually get algae blooms. When you do radical shifts, you get algae blooms. Whenever a big changes happen, that's where stuff gets out of balance. And algae, as we talked about earlier, any one of those nutrients that are out of balance, it can really just grab onto it and grow like wildfire. One of the other things to know, algae can grow 24 hours a day. Anytime there's light on, it can grow. Plants can only photosynthesize, depending on the type, somewhere between 10 and 14 or 15 hours. After that, not many plants can photosynthesize anymore. So if you have your light on, or you forget one weekend, this is why it's like, oh, I forgot the light on while I was on vacation, came back and it was horrible. Because those 3 days, your plants stopped growing after about 16 hours that first day, and then algae just utilized all the nutrients in the light the last 2.5 days, and you come back and like, algae's everywhere. Because plants need to rest. They need a light cycle and a dark cycle. They have to consume CO2, make oxygen, and then consume oxygen and give off CO2. That's their cycle. So that's why it's really important, which leads me to our sales pitch of the minute. It just so happens we now sell Wi-Fi timers. Now, I've been using this Wi-Fi timer for over a year. You might have seen us install a bunch of them in Zenzo's fish room. Dean's been using them. I use them at the warehouse. This controls our entire warehouse lighting system. It controls our CO2 in our system at the warehouse, all the lights above the ponds, and all of my lights in my fish room. Now, this is a pretty simple device. It's about 15 bucks. It works with an app on your phone, and it's kind of a set it once and forget it. You know, I know some people have had trouble in the past. Like I bought one, didn't sync up right. These ones, the TP-Link ones with the Kasa app, very, very user-friendly. And what I like about it, power goes out, they automatically keep working. It's not like, oh, I had to reestablish a connection or anything like that. They're really nice. So if that's something you're looking for, I highly recommend them. One of the best uses I use them for. So you can set multiple ons and offs. Now, why is that important, right? So I can set it so that my lights come on, let's say at 10 a.m., and they go off, what's 10 hours later? 8 p.m.? Yes. So then they go off at 8 p.m., right? And they do that every single day. And that's that lighting cycle we want for those plants, let's say. But then I'm having Bob over and Jimmy over, and we're going to film in my studio, right, or in the fish room, right? We're going to film. I got to turn the lights on. So I can turn the lights on by using the app. Now, what if we go out to dinner or something like that and we forget to turn them off and the light's on all night long? I grow a bunch of algae. Well, because you can set multiple times to come on and off, I set it so that every one of my timers has another function on it that says turn off at midnight. So even if it's 8 o'clock, I hit the button, turn my lights on, we film for another 2 hours, then we leave and I forget, at midnight it's still going to shut off again, which is really nice. Now, you can also use it to turn things on multiple times. So imagine that you're one of the people that when you go to change water, right, you turn off your heater or your filter, right? Maybe you unplugged it in the past. Well, now you could connect it to a Wi-Fi timer. What you do is you hit the button, you turn it off so it cuts off all the power, and you have it set every day of the week to turn on at, let's say, noon. But you never have it turn off. You only ever turn it off with your phone. So you do your water change, you turn off the heater, you turn off the pump, you get distracted, the dog got out, now you got to go rescue the dog. You already filled up the water, but you would have forgotten normally to turn on or plug in the filter or the heater. Well, automatically the next day it would turn on at noon. Now you could set as many as you want. You could have it turn on every single hour of every day. On. That's fine because it's going to go turn on and it says I'm already on, no problem, right? You can also do on and off as many times as you want, but that's some of the fun ways that I've managed to use this. I also will use it if I plug a power head into it. So I plug in a power head. This allows me to pump water. So if I have water in a bucket in my sink and I have this connected to the wall, I can turn the water on, flow it into my tank, and then when I'm about getting full, I just go and stop. Now I don't have to like race, your wife or your husband's not looking at you like a weirdo as you like leap over the dog and get to the sink to shut it off right before you overfill. Now you've got a controlled way to do that, especially when you're doing multiple tanks. It's really nice to be like, watch this. Stop. Let me move my equipment over to the next tank, start filling. Let's go ahead and turn the water back on. So I've used these in a million different ways. I really like them, and I waited a long time to make sure this was the crazy easy one so that it wasn't like, this thing won't pair with my phone, it won't do a thing. This is the one. And yeah, tried and true by a lot of hobbyists now. And if you need them, use them. Good plants to put in sand. Typically, Vallisneria does really well. Crypts do pretty well. I don't like stem plants very much in sand. They can do okay, but they don't like it. And my normal kind of sales pitch, if you will, on that is when you go to the beach, you don't really see a lot of plants doing very well, even when there's like a sandy beach by a river. It's because sand's not a great medium for that. You get up to where some dirt and rocks are, all of a sudden, tons of plants, right? And so it's not that it can't be done, it's that it's not optimal in my opinion. And so I just be a little bit careful there. All right. I'm going to chime in on some stuff I've missed while I went on my little sales pitch rant. What about an aquarium cafe? Picture the ADA gallery, but with restaurant tables mixed in. It's a concept that might work. I don't think it's going to make a ton of money. It could be very cool and trendy, but I think the majority of money will be made off of coffee, and not so much any kind of fish-related stuff. People always ask, have you ever thought about it? It's like, well, consider this has been my job for like 15 years and I got an army of people working with me. There's not too many ideas we haven't considered. One of them would be like a koi cafe. And so that's lots of ponds. You sit near the ponds at tables or at the edge of a pond. You order coffee. You have lunch with someone while you're purchasing your coffee. Every time you spend $10, you get a little portion of food. You can feed the koi. They're fun to interact with. You bring your kids, you bring your family, you bring business contacts, all of that. But the majority of it would be in the koi and the little bit of lunch you're providing. And then you might get a lot of clients you could hand off to a maintenance company for koi ponds and things like that when you have someone, I'm in love with this. How could I set this up in my own home and blah, blah, blah. Like there's a million ways to do business and everything can technically work. But when you get to a point where you have a way to make business work, do you go, I'd like to put in 4,000% effort to make 100% money when I could put in 100% effort to make 100% money, right? So I think that's a path that's pretty intensive to make that work. Not saying it won't, but a lot goes in for the return. And usually when you're doing something brand new that a lot of people aren't doing, you have a lot more risks. You can't follow good ideas that have been done in the past. All right, lots of new members. We've got Blake, Elser, Ashley, Lisa, Zach, Patrick. Well, welcome. They're all snails. They're all brand new. Angelfish fry. I got the fry to free swing with about 90% success, but within 24 hours I lose 25 to 50%, then no issue. Baby brine shrimp every 4 hours. So we're within 24 hours after the free swimming. How fast is your water movement? What can happen is you got baby brine shrimp, they're swimming around, and the fish is like, ooh, I want to eat that. But if they're being like, they're on swim against the current, they can actually burn more calories than they get back from the food, and they actually die of starvation. So you got to be very careful with the water movement with something like that. Obviously, if you've got like an internal or a hang on back that's like sucking fish in, that's horrible, and that's going to eat a lot of those. But I'm assuming you don't have that going on. So I would make sure that it's not more energy being consumed so that to get that food than they would get back from it. Which, by the way, brine shrimp, time for another commercial. Our brine shrimp eggs are now here. They landed. We actually put them on the website on Sunday. We've been hatching them. We've been testing them for I don't even know how many months at this point. I don't even know how long it's been in the works. Like I feel like I've been talking about it forever. I know we'd been testing it for long before we ever even mentioned it. We never knew if it was going to come through or not because we had to get this through the FDA. We had never brought something through the FDA before, the Food and Drug Administration, because this is technically a food. So we only brought in 2,000 cans. We're going to reorder real soon. Don't worry about that. We're going to change product packaging a little bit. But you get 100 grams of brine shrimp in here for $20. The things to know about this brine shrimp. We specifically sought out what is the best brine shrimp that money can buy that a hobbyist could actually afford. So what does that mean? There are cans of eggs that are several hundreds of dollars that are used in very high-end lab research that a hobbyist is never going to buy. Let's be real. But these that we bought were actually 95% hatching. That means 95 out of 100 eggs should hatch. Should, meaning you got your water right, you got the temperature right, everything went right. Now, we put 90% on the package just because, like, well, they claim 95. It certainly seems it to us, but we want that a little extra leeway. So typically when you're evaluating eggs, you'll get like grade A, grade B, all that kind of stuff. And they'll be anywhere from 65% to 85, 90%. But, you know, it's all in how they're handled and treated. And I always like to under-promise, over-deliver. So I was like, all right, let's back it off another 5%, even though we're buying the best that we can find, and really make sure we deliver. And they come super duper sealed. So what does that mean? They actually are sealed 4 times. So inside, which I already have mine because I'm hatching them right now, you get a bag that's sealed, that's resealable. You can keep them in this tin. So this tin, we wanted to use the tin to make sure it couldn't get punctured in shipping or anything like that. And it comes with a seal. You then have this metal seal right here that usually I use a key or something to, if I had more fingernails, which I don't, let me find a key. It's like a paint can kind of thing. There we go. So you have that seal. And then you had a seal right here you had to peel off. So that way they're as fresh as you can possibly get them, because we want to maintain that high level of hatching. And then we store them in a giant fridge/freezer right on that kind of line thing so that they stay nice and cool to make sure they don't overheat in our warehouse before we ship them out to you. So yes, we're thinking, and we're going to talk to the vendor about getting a bigger size as well. So if that person that's got a giant fish room goes, I do 10 cans a day. Well, yes, we're going to try to get that full-size can. Now keep in mind, brine shrimp in general is very expensive. We didn't want to take a huge risk. They are here. They are selling pretty quickly. They are amazing. You know, I know Dean has already switched over full-time. He's a big brine shrimp user. Obviously, I'm going to use my own stuff. But I think majority of you guys are going to find that if you were a brine shrimp user in the past, you'll go, wow, these are amazing. The separation rate where the eggs are floating after they've hatched and the brine shrimp is amazing like nothing else. I've said amazing about 4 times. But, you know, if you don't need brine shrimp, you won't notice the difference. If you only ever hatched it once before, you're going to be like, yeah, it made brine shrimp. That's what it does. You know, if you're a big user of it, though, you'll appreciate some of these. Like, wow, that actually was quite a bit better. And I wanted to make it so that the average hobbyist didn't have to spend, you know, $60, $70 on a can that would have lesser hatch rate that would last him years. So I wanted to make it so, oops, I made babies, got to order it, it's $20, now I can start working on it, and not this huge financial investment. It actually comes from Flynn, who lives in Canada. He wanted to hatch brine shrimp, but being that he was 16 or 17 at the time, a $60 or $70 investment was a huge investment for a teenager to grow fish. And I was like, man, you really only need like, I don't know, a fourth of a can or something. That would last you a really long time. You only have like 10 aquariums. And so that was and I realized most people are that way. Like, oh, if you have like 10 aquariums or less, you need way less brine shrimp eggs than someone running a whole fish store, a whole fish farm, or fish room. And so we're starting there. Let's help the masses. And the minority would be the person that uses, like Dean, I think he goes through a pound a week. No, a pound a month. So he goes through it pretty quick. Whereas like those farms that I visited in Israel, he went through 7 pounds a day. Like those are some big farms. All right. How long do eggs last unopened at room temperature? Should I stick them in the fridge even before opening? So basically the way brine shrimp works is if it's exposed to heat, oxygen, and moisture, it can start the hatching process. So if you leave them unopened in a fish room, you technically could be lowering the hatch rate. I myself haven't really had that problem. It is recommended you keep them in the fridge. We're actually running tests where Dean's going to leave some open in his fish room for months and months and months and strategically test and see, does it dwindle? Right now, best practices is keep it in the fridge. Most people, what they do is they keep the majority of their eggs in the fridge or freezer, and then they keep the portion they're going to use this like next week in their fish room next to their hatchery. That has always worked really well. I've never had any problems. I'm sure someone's had some problems at some time, but that's worked really well for me. So that's the advice I would give. Will the 800-gallon be Ladybird's forever home? It's going to be a home for a very long time, but I could see it going to a bigger aquarium if I needed to. I don't want to because that's a very big expense, but so here's where it breaks down. It's big enough to hold her forever, right? But at a certain point, you're like, she's getting really big, maybe a bigger aquarium, it'll look better, you always want more, right? So like if you've got, let's say you have a small yard for your dog, don't you want a large yard? Don't you want to see that dog run and run and run and run and run? Of course you do. But can you afford to move or buy a new house, something like that? And that's what it comes down to me. Like, of course I want a bigger aquarium for her. She'll love it. But what are the financials? What are can I even do it? How much, you start getting bigger, much bigger than the 800-gallon, it starts getting nutty. Like, oh yeah, this thing's $15,000. What's the next size up? $32,000. What? Like it gets to a point where you're just like, that does not seem right. So, I guess my answer is this. I hope it isn't her forever home because a bigger aquarium will be amazing. And that'll mean we're doing well in business and the members are supporting me and all those good things are happening. So I hope it's not the forever home. But if it had to be, it's a pretty sizable home for a Maboo puffer. Like chemically, it would be fine. Justin Campbell says, I've got a plan a 25-gallon tank with some Ember Tetras, Autos, and a Monos. Tetras hide and stem plants other than feeding time. Would a betta be compatible, and would it help the Tetras become more active with a top-level fish? Well, yes. So typically, the more fish are out and about, that signifies there's not predators. So that a betta could do that, but another schooling fish might do it better. The combo with those fish and a betta usually works out okay. It's not always a working scenario, though. I always bring up dogs and cats. A lot of people have them cohabitate in their house, no problem. But there are plenty of dogs that absolutely hate cats, and it doesn't work. So have a backup plan in case those tetras are biting at its fin, or the tetra just will not stop abusing those amanos or whatnot. But I would say you're probably like 60 or 70% chance of like, that's working out pretty good. I like it. Nick says, I should have specified my last question. How about finding the light nutrient balance with an adjustable light like a Fluval 3.0? The light level seems to be too powerful with the planted presets. So that would depend on, one, the type of plants you're trying to grow. So is it kind of like a low to medium light plant? Is it a high light plant? Are you injecting CO2? The other thing is, how tall is your aquarium? So the 800 gallon, right? 40 inches tall. That puts the PAR at that substrate level right here, right? You can see how it's like pretty white right here. It actually puts out about 20 PAR. 20 PAR will grow probably 90% of all the plants on our website, right? As you can see, look at all these crypts thriving, right? Now, let's say the aquarium is only this tall. That PAR might be 100, right? It might be really bright. And you can actually get so what happens is, when that's crazy bright, okay, I gotta get more nerdy to explain this. This is not gonna go right if I don't. So the way to think of light, okay? Light emits photons, and I think it's C.A.R.E. Wade explained this to me in the way that I could understand it. The way photons work, it's kind of like rain, okay? So if you have a light rain, and it does that for an hour, let's say on your driveway you get 5 gallons of water, right? But maybe in a really, really heavy rain, in 5 minutes, you get 5 gallons of water, right? But think of lighting like rain. Very low light, right? Takes a long time to add up. Very strong light, lots of rain really fast, right? So we're trying to control like how much photons, how much rain's going on. Now, we know that growing plants is 2 parts, fertilizer, or let me make that easier, fertilizer and light, right? And if we have light crazy high, we're gonna need crazy high fertilizer, because if we don't, and we get that imbalance, we just get a lot of algae, right? So, just like we were controlling the length of time on a light using a timer, right? Which the Fluval 3.0 has one of those built in. So we were controlling how long, right? We also need to control the intensity, right? So we might need to put it at 50% strength at 10 hours for that size of aquarium. On this aquarium, it's 10 hours at 100% strength because it's very tall. On other tanks, it might be 20% strength at 10 hours to do what I need to do. And it depends on how much food you got going on and how much intensity, what kind of plants, are we injecting CO2? CO2 generally makes it consume more nutrients, which usually uses more light, and so everything kind of speeds up. And if you're new to the hobby, you usually want everything to grow in faster. The longer you've been around, the slower you want it to grow because you're tired of trimming, right? So if you just got your first home, you want your lawn to grow fast because you love cutting the grass, it looks great. Well, maybe you've had a lawn for 20 years and now you wish you could just like, hey, stop growing, I'm tired of mowing you, right? You can see how it would get like that. All right, let me see. Snuck in an order for the brine shrimp eggs. The fish room will be feasting this week. Well done. That's ironic. Well done tanks. I didn't even realize that was going to come out that way. I ran out of aquarium salt and started using kosher salt to hatch brine shrimp. Seems to be working okay, and the fry are doing well. Am I running a risk? I don't think so. Usually anything with NaCl in it, like actual salt, will work. You just need that saltiness to it. I find I get the best hatches with actual marine grade salt, so something you'd use in a saltwater aquarium. Just because I like the extra nutrients I'm also putting into my tank, because I don't separate the salt water from the brine. A lot of people do. I don't. I like to give that calcium and the pH buffer and the pH and all that, and the calcium and the strontium and magnesium and all of that stuff. I like to put that into my plant tank so my plants can consume it. So that's just the way I like to do it. You know, some people will use like Himalayan salt. Almost anything will work, honestly. In the right, do a little bit of testing and everything. $5 super chat from Brian saying thank you. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I have a planted tank using Fluval stratum, dosing liquid fertilizer daily. Wondering if it's necessary to use root tabs to refresh the substrate at some point. I would say probably not. Now, it doesn't mean one way or the other, but like if you got a lot of fish pooping, eventually that's going to work its way down and kind of keep refreshing that substrate. You could hit a point, you know, a few years in where it's really depleted. If you had a lot of heavy root feeders, it might need a help or a helping hand. But I never really run into that myself. But, you know, that's kind of the point you run a substrate like that so you don't have to do root tabs. I like to run normal substrates and use root tabs though because I don't like how light and fluffy stratums are. Which cichlids get along with electric blue acaras? Things like angels, things like Oscars, blood parrots, geophagus cichlids, probably things like convicts. I'm trying to think of more like medium-sized cichlids that aren't hyper-aggressive. Rainbow cichlids. I know there's 100 more. I'm just not thinking of them. I've covered some bigger groups, but maybe a true parrot cichlid also, which is different than the blood parrot. Yeah, should be plenty of options for you though. Have I chosen whether the koi are moving to the new place? I mean, obviously I want to move them. The reason I haven't committed one way or another is that we need to do more research. Now, what do I mean by that? We have a creek that feeds into this pond. And then when the pond overfills with water, it leaves. I don't know where that water goes yet. Does it feed back to a creek? Eventually, that creek goes out into the ocean, right? But I don't want to contaminate or potentially do anything hazardous to the environment just because my koi had some babies and a couple koi babies got past my defenses and then it made it into someone else's pond or natural spring or whatever where there was a natural population of stuff that eventually made it to the ocean. Right? And do a lot of my neighbors and stuff do that all the time? I am sure, right? But I have this like responsibility to the environment that I really feel. And so we basically have to clear, you know, half an acre of sticker bushes to be like, where does this pipe go? And then we could also make sure we have a way to collect, like we could have it drain onto, you know, maybe it's a giant field of gravel and then it would be slow enough that if a fish ever did make it over there, you know, for lack of a better term, the fish would die before it ever made it back to the water source. And that's what I'd be looking to do. I really want to make sure that ecologically I'm not creating a disaster. And that's very important to me. So that's why I'm not committing to it. I don't want to tell you guys, yeah, I'm bringing the koi and then do something stupid when I know it's like, you know what? It's actually better if I don't do this. We haven't gotten in and seen, is there a native fish population yet? I haven't seen a single sign of life in there outside of frogs and bugs. That being said, I really want to investigate and be sure what's going on before I do any kind of moves like that. And, you know, could I build another koi pond? I could, yes. But then you have an empty koi pond here at the house when we need to sell it. I also have tons of predators at the new place. It's much more rural. So there's other things to think about. And this pond that's there is huge and very deep and more likely that it can, the koi would survive from predators, but that doesn't mean that predators wouldn't get them there either. So, you know, a lot of people say like, how could you leave them behind? It's like, well, what if you knew there's a 50% chance they were just going to get eaten? Like, then it's like, oh, you're almost better to leave them or find them a new home than, you know, so there's a lot to do. And being that I don't stay there all the time, I don't know how many birds of prey are there and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of work I need to do until I feel confident to bring pets into that scenario. Like we have to build a dog run for our dogs so they don't get taken by a bald eagle. You know, there's things to do. And, you know, it's a move like this for us where we're basically moving this building, which is like a business. We're moving our household. We've got ponds outside and doing all of that safely. It's going to take months, you know, and so we're working towards it all. You also get to a point where you don't want to move koi in the middle of winter, right? So it could be like, oh, they're going to overwinter here and we bring them in a few more months. That being said, we don't want to wait that long to sell our house. There's all these factors in play and we'll try to make the best decisions we can. I hope everything works out because it'd look awesome and I'd enjoy feeding them and all of that. But I don't want to just go about it, recklessly, like got to do it all. Ooh, that turned out horrible. And then, I don't know. I don't want to make a video of like, oh man, look, I killed all my koi and I get 500,000 views or something, because I don't like to sensationalize the negative parts of the hobby. I don't hide them either. Like, I definitely will show you guys when things go wrong, but I much rather would get like less views and have a more boring story to tell of like, look, we moved all the koi and it was successful. Sorry. It was successful and everything went fine, nothing notable, and great. I'll show you again next summer or whatever. That's my goal. My goal is uneventful, went well, enjoyable, easy. That's a big part of my philosophy. Keep it easy. How can I make sure my calico bristlenose is eating? He hides during the day. I drop in wafers before the lights go out. I'm concerned my corridors are eating the food. You probably are eating a bunch of that food. You might try some rapashi food. You could get like a cave for like a bristlenose, and you could paint rapashi food on the inside and put it in so you couldn't get to it. You can target feed, get a piece of PVC pipe, put the algae wafer, it'll sink down and go into like a cave or some rocks where the corridors aren't as likely to get to. But the biggest sign is watch the bellies. So if the belly is concave, not getting enough food. If it's rotund, getting plenty. New members chiming in. We got Sam, Timothy, and Marco. Thank you very much. All brand new snails. Welcome. Other team members, please welcome them. Make them feel welcome. For a decent school, how many albino cory cats in a 180 trying to make a big community tank? What I would do, Brian, is I'd walk into a local store and I'd be like, look, I want a rad school of albino corridors, like a 180-gallon tank. What kind of deal you got for me? And if they go, you know what? If you buy them all, we got 24, I'll give them to you at X. You might do that. If they go, hey, 18, whatever that is, I would try that approach. You can't really go with too many. I mean, obviously you could, but at 50 it'd be okay. At 75 it'd be okay. If they're like, we got 900, I'm like, okay, that's too many. But most stores are never going to have anywhere near that. So they're more likely to have like 24 to maybe 50. Anywhere in there, it would look really cool. Now, you might get them and they're this big and you're like, that's not cool enough. But wait till they're full grown. They're going to be chunky monkeys, and you got 40 of those things zooming around. It'll look cool. So, whatever. I try to work out that deal. Be like, hey, I got a deal for you. I'll buy that whole tank of those, but what price you got for me? Do I ever get zebra plecos in my store? If so, how hard are they to sell? Not very hard to sell. When we sell them, like we usually bring in 6 to 10 at a time, and they'll sell within 4 to 7 days. So it's a tricky thing when it comes to sales, right? You might ask, is it hard to sell a Toyota Camry? And it's like, it can or it can't be. If I bring in 40 million of them, it's going to be hard to sell them. If I bring in 5, they'll sell tomorrow. So you have to guess, what do I think the demand is? And then bring in roughly that amount so they do move quickly. That's the goal with every fish. If I think I'm going to sell 50 neon tetras, maybe I order 60. So I've got a little more in case I underestimated, right? But I don't bring in 600, because then it's like, uh-oh, I've got way too many mouths to feed and stuff can go wrong. So if you're good at playing the game, you basically guess demand. Now, there's a lot of times where I order 10 zebra plecos and they go, well, they shipped me 2. Like, well, those 2 are going to sell really quick. I thought the demand is higher. Demand was higher. We only can get 2. So sometimes we're throttled by what's available. But a lot of businesses will get trapped into ordering way too many because it's a good deal. Oscars are on sale. They're only 40 cents each wholesale. Let's buy 100. You sell 20 of them right away. Over the next month, you sell another 40 of them. Now you got 40 of them that are all getting this big and they're starting to fight. And so the fins are all beat up. You're starting to separate them, starting to get sick. Now you got half a store filled with Oscars that are too big that no one wants to buy. So you got to be real careful with forecasting demand and making sure stuff moves in a timely manner. What deficiency does a curved leaf show? My Ludowigia arcuata and lacrustris produces leaves that curve horizontally. Let me think. Curve horizontally. How does that mean? Like this? Rather than straight. Is it calcium, magnesium, or other? I would follow the chart that we have in our article, but I would wager it is It's going to be calcium or magnesium. But I wouldn't say that I've memorized that enough, because whenever I see something like that happening, I go, well, let me look at a chart. Let's save time. And I don't have it happen that often, because I tend to put lots of nutrients into my water. And it's one of the reasons I don't use a ton of CO2 in my home tanks. I don't want to have to constantly monitor parameters and go, I used up all the calcium, I used up all the magnesium, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Instead, I like to keep a moderate amount of nutrients in there, have things thrive, and be able to replace them with things like brine shrimp water and other stuff. So again, my way of fish keeping is what works really well for me. And, I don't know if it's going to work well for you, but I try to think of, it doesn't make any sense to me to hatch out brine shrimp, clean it really well, put the brine shrimp, watch them eat it, then go over and get a scoop of calcium, put it in the water because I was missing the calcium. It's like, well, why did I wash calcium down the drain and then put calcium in? Why not just do it at the same time? So that's a lot of what I got going on, and I really focus on what comes in my tap water, what's kind of entering in through my fish food, how much is leaving via my plants, and how can I adjust all those things to make the minimal work possible. So the only time I use CO2, let's say I really had too much food going in there, I got 1 billion fish, that's when I do add CO2 to speed up how fast it can consume that, so I can do less water changes, which most people don't look at it that way. They go, oh, well, I'm going to do the opposite of that. I got a lot of fish. I don't want more CO2. They're going to suffocate. It's like, no, for me, it's like, I want to make more. I want to make more plant. I'll trim out more plant, clean more water. It'll offset that. So I try to use everything I've got to get me to where I want to go, instead of, only putting these ingredients in. You can skip a lot of these steps when you know what you're doing. It takes a while, and definitely takes trial and error. And if you guys have watched me on camera for the last 5 years, you've seen how my hobby has progressed. Now, before that, it was progressing as well, right? I was at the beginning of the channel. You see a lot of experiments with Daphnia ponds and a lot of stuff outside, and I keep transitioning that knowledge. Now it's transferring inside, and I'm getting to a point where I literally want to make it so that my aquariums basically don't change water. They only top off. The nutrients that are going in, I'm kind of aware of what I'm feeding and how it's going in, and I'm aware of the plants and the fish coming out. There's always going to be some water changes because I give fish to the store to sell, right? And so if 3 gallons of water leaves my 100-gallon tote once a month, that's a 3% water change once a month. But that's a far cry from what the hobby has become, and I've watched it do this over the past 15 years. It's basically become, if you're not doing 50% every week, you're not doing it right. And, I'll let someone else be the judge of who's doing it right. When I make plenty of fish and it works for my store and I'm happy with the hobby and I enjoy what's going on and I can see my fish and I like it, for me, that's good enough. For someone else, they might find lots of enjoyment in changing water, and therefore they wouldn't be having fun. But I don't find it to be fun to change water. I actually do like cleaning sponge filters. I like trimming plants and removing plants and selling fish, or I don't even like selling it because it doesn't matter to me what we get for it. I just give them to the store, and I'll give them to friends and stuff too. I like making more. Seeing babies, seeing plants grow and make more, and fish grow and make more, that is my visual cue that I'm doing something right. And when I see that success, I enjoy it. I enjoy being successful, going, great, that did work out. My plan worked. I put all the ingredients together and I built this house, and now it works. So that's how I look at a tank. The ecosystem is, can I tweak these things? Can I change this? What happens if I put an auto feeder on? What happens if I change the amount of light? What happens when I do this or that? Okie doke. So would you not do auto water changes anymore? I'm still setting up auto water changes, an auto water system at the new fish room. But my goal is to top off. So like right now, all of my my tanks, they get water changes, some, right? But they're not set up in the way in which I want to make sure they're sustainable. They're not all big enough systems, and I've got, they didn't start that way. So this new way, I want to start in that way, knowing that if I know I'm only going to change water, and let's say it's on average, I find that there's 2 gallons of evaporation a week out of my ponds, and there's half a gallon out of my 20-gallon tanks or whatever it is. My aim is to, so if a half a gallon came out, my aim will be to probably put in 3/4 of a gallon, right? And then same with the ponds. 2 gallons came out, let's put 3 gallons in. And so yes, that 1 gallon will probably overflow, but it's going to be too hard to manage, all of them perfectly, right? And so I'd rather put a little bit extra in and do a slight water change and have it auto top off if I take a few gallons out and I go pour it on a plant or anything. I want everything to kind of just stay at the levels. So that's why we're going to do it. Not so much like, yes, could I hit a button and be like, change tons of water? I could do that. But my goal, one of the reasons our new home is on a well, one, it's got better water. There's a little bit of nitrogen in the water, which I'm looking forward to. It's got calcium in the water, which I'm really looking forward to. And being that it's not unlimited supply, I mean, the people that live there just said they never ran out of water, but I never want to run out of water. And so I want to, it adds a new element to me, or for me, of water conservation and all that. Like, let's make this a little bit harder for myself, because when I have a new challenge, it's kind of fun to figure it out. And so maybe I'll do that for a few years. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll go, this is way too hard, or maybe it's not fun, or maybe I'm not getting the results. Maybe it's worse. I mean, all the ponds in my fish room, they've never had a water change, and it's been over a year, and they're doing really well. But what if it's total disaster at year 2? Like, I got to figure my way through that. Where did you get that YouTube subscriber count block thing that is always in the background? Where did I get that? Like maybe an old live stream stuff? That was, what do they call that? I can't remember what they call it. You find it on Amazon, though. It's just a little, like, you just program it to keep track of your subscribers or whatever you want. They're expensive, though. They're like $200. Can you discuss the impact of doing water changes versus a top-off? I only do top-offs and never remove water. Will that impact parameters such as TDS? Probably. TDS is its own thing. TDS kind of shenanigans. We'll put that aside for now. When you top off, you're putting things into water. So you might put in some dechlorinator. You might put in calcium with the water. You might put in nitrogen. You might put in those chemicals, right? And water. When you change water, first, some stuff comes out, right? So water is always 2 parts. Water changes. You need ways for stuff to come out. You need ways for stuff to go in. The way I run my aquariums, the way I get stuff out is plants. Plants, as they grow, they consume nitrogen. They consume iron. They consume calcium, right? So if I got to get in there and trim and take them out, that's one way to remove it from the water. Now, if I didn't have live plants and all I'm doing is topping off, there's nothing to remove that from the water. And over time, water's going to get crazy hard. Iron might get crazy high. Other things are going to build up to really high levels. And in extremes, that can be bad for fish. So as aquarists, most times we're trying to keep everything not in the extreme levels and find a way that will work for us. If you're in the saltwater hobby, you use a lot of things that absorb some of those chemicals, because not a lot of hobbyists rely on the macroalgae. Instead, they're relying on chemicals to absorb maybe phosphates and that kind of stuff, and they swap that media out all the time. They might have I want to say GMO, but it's not. CFO reactor. They've got all these resins they can use to absorb stuff in reactors. They swap that out. I think it's GFO. Granacular something, ferric oxide. I don't know. I have to read it. My brain is not comprehending what I want to say at the moment. But so it's, yes, if you're only topping off, maybe your water is very pure. It's not a problem. Maybe your plants are consuming it for you. Maybe you're this close from disaster. I don't know, without testing. Testing is always important no matter whether you're changing water or not changing water. You need to know what's going on with your water. That's one of the biggest things. So even though I don't do water changes, that doesn't mean I'm not watching the water. I'm definitely watching it. Maybe even more so than a lot of people when they go, I change 50% every week. They don't look at their water anymore. That's a dangerous spot to be. So I highly recommend keep on top of what your water is doing. Do I plan on an auto dosing system for the ponds? For fertilizer, no. Like the ponds haven't had fertilizer in like 5 or 6 months. It's been fish food. Yeah, fish food. I'm not growing any crazy plants in there either. It's mostly just guppy grass. Like I don't have to worry about getting enough reds to my crypts or anything like that. So not really. I'm not planning on a doser. Can I make a video on camellinus, redworms, and fish? I can. I probably won't until I find a good medicine that'll actually cure it, because it's too hard to tell people to use 1/100th of a gram of this medicine that you can't get a hold of to treat this thing. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense till I can actually have a usable video for people. I bought a Fluval 3.0 from you guys. For some reason now only the purple and warm white spectrum works. Have you all heard of this happening to anyone else? I mean, we have had some defective over the years. I would make sure that everything's turned up in the app. And so what could I do here? I could, let me open one of my lights and see if I can show you on camera. So if I go to manual, and if you look right here, you can see the different spectrums, right? And you said you basically had the purple, let's call that blue, and the warm white. You could have something like that, and it could be these ones are turned down, right? So you want to make sure that those aren't turned down and make sure it's an actual physical defect with the light and not a program setting, okay? Outside of that, yeah, there's a problem every once in a while. But, you know, reach out to our, if you bought it from us, right? Yep, you said you bought it from us. Reach out to us. We'll help you troubleshoot it a little bit. We might ask you for a little video or a picture or two. If it is faulty, we'll send you out another one, and we'll bill it basically out to Fluval and get you swapped out as easy as possible. GFO reactor, yes. Thank you, John. How do I keep algae off the shells in my multi-tank? The best way I found was to use Malaysian trumpet snails. They'll kind of get in there, clean up after them a little bit. They still get picked up by the shellies and kind of run off during the day, but they will help you keep a little cleaner and maybe lowering the light a little bit. I think Cardinia shrimp keepers are the folks who talk about TDS the most. Yeah, it definitely is popular in that facet of the hobby. The problem is, you know, I can make up an acronym too. Like I always focus on, let me think, STT. Like, oh, it's all about the STT. What's your STT reading? You know, and you're basically kind of making up a thing. And if I make it popular enough, over years, the whole hobby will start talking about STT, right? And that's kind of what it was the key to the shrimp hobby and really getting Cardinia shrimp to breed. Thank you very much. And so because that led people to be successful, it became commonplace. Now, STT stands for seasoned tank time. How long has your tank been up and running and seasoned? Not cycled, but seasoned, right? And that's actually a very important thing, but it's just as important a measurement as TDS. Like people will be like, what does STT even really mean or do? Like how many water changes were done or not done? Like same thing with TDS. Okay, you've got a TDS of 100. What if it's 100 and it's all iron or all dechlorinator or all ammonia or all this heavy metal that's toxic, right? Or what if it was just a mix of calcium and magnesium and dechlorinator and some other trace elements, right? That's the problem. People go, well, you know, they only work at TDS at 80. All right, well, what if I had TDS at 250 and it was all dechlorinator? But you had TDS of 80 and it was calcium. That's way different, right? And so in my experience, when you even see it in like, oh, well, I've got cherry shrimp. They only do well at like 120 TDS. Like, oh, well, I bred 40,000 of them at 300 TDS like it was nothing. So what is that? Like, and the reality is like, well, those TDS members are drastically different in size, but also what they're made up of, right? Think of it, here's probably the best way I could, explain this. Think of TDS like money. Okay, so you have 180 money, Well, depending on where you live in the world is how much value that is. Do you have 180 pesos, 180 US dollars, 180 euros, 180 pounds, 180 francs? What is it, right? TDS, you got 120 of something, but what is it? You see how it actually is different based on, you know, in different countries, in different states and all of that, our water is very different. And so that's why TDS is like, it's such a generic thing that it's not useful to me. It might be useful, like if you and your neighbor are both using TDS, right? And you live right next door to each other, or you're using it in your own fish room and you go, this tank is 80 TDS, this one's 120, same water source, that can be useful. But this tank has 80 TDS and then someone in Japan has 120. Our water and the chemicals we're using and everything is so different, it's not really applicable to each other. So without using tons of different tests to quantify what TDS is, it's I don't know, I find it to be leading people down the wrong path. I got my mug. I think Zenzo sent this to me for Christmas one year. No, wait. I think that actually this came from one of my social media people a couple years ago. Nice. Can I ask a question about a plant? You can, the real McCoy. Whether I'll see your name again, we'll have to see. Can you talk a little bit about fish hormones? What are they and how will they affect my fish? And if I should be concerned with reducing them with water changes? I don't have any scientific evidence. So start with everything I'm about to say is probably wrong. In my experience, I've experienced some things, right? The only time I've really been able to experience what I believe was a hormone thing was when we bring in lots of angelfish. And this is a store before I worked at. And we didn't have auto water changes and things, right? So if we brought in like 24 to 35, 34, whatever, somewhere in there of angels, like baby angels, into a 20-gallon tank, they would do okay. The minute you put like 50 in there, you'd get die-off. We'd treat them the same way. It could be the same tank, could be everything the same. But we know that some fish can release hormones that will kind of control the population when densities are very high. Because if all those grow to adults, they're all going to die, right? That's at least the theory behind it. And I don't know enough to measure it and things like that. I do know that as fish grow, they release hormones, and that can stunt others. But I don't know at what levels. We don't have an easy test kit for that. Of like, oh, I tested it. My hormone level's at 4, and we all know that it's 6. It's horrible. Like, we don't know that, right? So that's why we change water to prevent that. That doesn't help you with your question, though, because you're like, well, should I be concerned? Not really. I think if you're not hitting those heavy stock levels, I think for the average hobbyist, it's never a problem. If you're running very high stock levels, yeah, it can become a thing. If you're raising thousands of angelfish, they'll kind of plateau if you don't start separating them out and doing things and more water changes. But usually with high numbers of fish comes lots of water changes, so we don't run into it very often. I tried telling someone a Facebook group that TDS is basically BS, and the whole group freaked out. I'm saying I'm trying to kill fish. Yeah, that's pretty common. I mean, every day there's a bunch of people think I'm crazy, and I am crazy. Don't deny that. But people, if you never challenge an idea of something, how do you know someone ever did, right? How do we know that, what was it, TSS? Time seasoned. I can't even remember what my acronym was, but you know, if no one ever challenges it, maybe someone just made it up like me, and then it became a thing. Maybe you've already done this, but could you do a dedicated video about TDS? Did it, where different combinations like fertilizer and chlorine would affect TDS? Yes, that video exists. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, this is the wrong channel. By the way, we have got an extra YouTube channel. more Aquarium Co-Op. That's our second channel. But, well, I can show it to you guys while I'm here. I'm on the screen. Why not? Let's go click this button and don't break, don't break. Oh, it's not working. Let me see if I can fix it real quick. This, you gotta, I need that like the Simpsons technical broken, let me see if I can find it real quick. There, try that. There, I did it. Normally I have to set this up beforehand, but, all right, so yeah, we have the More Aquarium Co-op channel. It's got extra videos, things like, you know, look at this, carbon dioxide CO2 guide. Do you really need CO2? This is actually a wicked good tour if you've never met Carlos before in his fish room. Carlos and Diane have a really cool fish room. I desperately want to go back and visit them again in Napa Valley. But let me show you guys the video I'm trying to reference. By the way, if you don't know how to search our videos, this is how you do it. Oh, look at that. You should become a member. I'm on right here. So you see this right here? If you go to our homepage and you click this search button, there it is. TDS meters are killing your shrimp and fish. That is a whole 13-minute video, and I definitely go over different levels. So there's salt, there's dechlorinator, there's all kinds of stuff. I'm testing the water, I'm showing you the differences, and I cover this because people go, "You're insane, TDS is magical," and I go, I mean, there's a very specific use for it, and aquarists don't use it for that. And then I have to defend myself, and then people go, "No, you're wrong." You know, I always tell people, like, bring a, you know, do a video, teach me. I'm trying to teach you. If I'm radically wrong, teach me. I'm always open to go, "Wow, didn't know that. Now I do. Now I'll stop telling people misinformation." You know, misinformation is only misinformation until it's proven to be wrong or right or whatever. You know, I try to only lend, this is by my experience. So that way it's not like, that's not scientifically right. It's like, you're right, it's not. That's what happened in my own fish room with no science involved at all. So, yeah. Corey has videos on everything. I mean, we have easily over 1,000 videos between the channels and, you know, but it gets hard to find, and that's, you know, and our filming quality is a lot better, so we're redoing some stuff. And why did I create another channel instead of combining all the videos in one channel? Because that's not the way YouTube works. So if I release a video on, what did we release one on? We released one on the Zis breeder box. So 10,000 of you guys would watch that, and then YouTube would go, "Hey, only 10,000 people instead of 50 or 100,000 people watched. Your videos must not be good anymore. Let's penalize you and show it to even less next time." And so you get penalized when a video doesn't do well, and we just know only X amount of people are ever going to want to watch a video about how to set up and how to optimally use a breeder box like that. Ah, yes, season tank time. I couldn't remember what my acronym was. STT. Do I have any plans for making phosphate and phosphorus separately? No. I have no plans to make any other fertilizers because it will only confuse the masses. My goal is to help people go from, "I don't know what I'm doing," to, "I'm having a great planted tank." If you want to take it further than that, you definitely could. But when someone's new to the hobby and they pull it up and they go, "You got 19 different fertilizers. Which one do I need?" Well, that's a long conversation. Or I go, "Just use Easy Green. That's just going to work for you." But I see here you sell phosphate too, like all the time. Here's the biggest problem I have right now. Probably 30% of everyone that ever buys Easy Green will buy Easy Iron too and go, "I'm dosing both." And then eventually what happens, I go, "I got hair algae all over the place." I go, "Oh, well, what are you doing?" "Well, you know, I dose 1 dose of this and 1 dose of iron per 10 gallons per week." And I go, "Oh, do you have a lot of red plants?" "No, I got 3 Anubias." And it's like, "Well, don't dose any iron. You don't need iron at all." "Oh, well, plants need iron." And I go, "Yeah, I know. Easy Green has iron in it." And they go, "Oh, really?" And then you go, Oh yeah, 0.13% is iron in here. Oh, okay, right? They just assume that Easy Green doesn't have iron in it. We just can't put super high levels of iron. So you're injecting CO2, your whole tank is filled with red plants, you want more iron in there, yes, dose iron. But the average person, they go, I want to do a thing. And so they go, oh, okay, this weekend I'm doing a thing. I'm going to buy all the stuff to do the thing, and that will make me successful. And so they walk in and they go, I bought 19 different fertilizers, I put all of them into the water, where is my magical garden? And then they don't get the results. And it's because they didn't do any learning, right? And so if we limit it to go buy all the things, and all the things is one thing, and they put the one thing in, and we designed it so if you only did one thing, it'll work, then they get success. Then they get to a point where like, oh, well, I got plants all over the place, but my crypts, like right back here, my crypt red when deadeye is more of a bronze color. How do I make it go red? And then you go, oh, well, easy iron, my friend. You take this, you get some more easy iron in there. That will get you a little more reds, but make sure you pair that with more highlight also. Highlight and iron, again, get you those reds. And then you might go, well, yeah, they're more red, but I really want to make them like pink red, right? Oh, well, in that case, yeah, we're going to use some more iron, but we're also going to inject CO2 because right now they can't even consume it fast enough to really get that pink color out of them, right? And that's how you get them. Instead, or they just go, yeah, I put all these things in there, right? I dumped in all the chemicals, and then it was a bloodbath with my plants, right? So that's why we won't make more stuff because I focus on helping people go from I bought a plant at Petco, it died and rotted, and it was actually a terrarium plant to, look, I have a fully planted aquarium and I'm enjoying the hobby and I'm going to take that next step and learn more and do a better job. And from there, that's where you might outgrow the needs of Easy Green, unfortunately. You might go, oh, well, I'm into CO2, highlight, ADA tank, all the bells and whistles. You know, this thing basically will, you know, it's so high tech, there's so many gadgets going, it will pop popcorn if you put a thing too close to it. You've outgrown what we specialize in. It's not that we don't know about it. It's that we don't want to ruin the part we've planned to onboard to get the higher level. So, and the way it works is there's millions of people that are basically that box store chain customer that don't have success. And there's actually very few that ascend to, I'm going to go full-blown CO2 system and all of that. Even though we glorify that, think of it like cars, right? Most of us are going to own that economy car of like, oh, it's a Toyota, a Honda, or whatever it is. We all know that Lamborghinis and race cars and all that stuff exists. But as a car dealer, I'm going to go, great. Let's get a safe car for your family that gets you to and from work and school every day. But Corey, why don't you sell these race cars? Some of us want race cars. It's not, I'm focused on, let me get you a good deal. Let me find the right fit for your family in this minivan, this 4-door, whatever it's going to be. If you need that race car, there's someone over here that'll sell it to you. We're focusing here. That's basically my outlook on the entire hobby in our business. We want to do one slice, kind of the biggest portion, as well as possible. And if I go like, well, I gotta learn about Ferraris and all this other stuff over here, it means I'm not going to put all my attention to making sure this is always the best down here. All right. What's the appropriate STT for discus? Honestly, Samuel, I would say about 6 months. Get yourself the Corridoras that you probably want and the Cardinals. Let them go in there with the plants. Let all that marinate for about 6 months. Then start adding your discus. And already have the high temps. Plants are adapted. Everything's going well. So that when the discus come in, they don't like get stressed out and stop eating and all of that. That's how I would do it. I saw a video from Primetime Aquatics that used a SERA snail trap, but I don't see it available in the US any longer. Do you know why? Yeah, I do. It's time to tell you the rant story. So basically, once upon a time, Corey was a much smaller YouTuber, much smaller business, and he goes, hey, SERA food is amazing. I like it. And I'm going to reach out and see if I can help him sell it. Eventually, we start helping. We fly over to Germany a few times. We do that. We're helping them sell it. We're doing a great job. They never pay us any money. They give us a little bit of a deal when we buy some stuff sometimes. They give us some more samples. I used to have a SERA pen, right? Oh, wait, and I've got... Ooh, let me see if I can enhance story time. Oh, I had to fight my way into the other studio and back. And I found my like trolling glasses while I'm there. These are like hard to see out of. I almost poked my own eye out right there. Anyway, back to the SERA story. So you fly all the way to Germany a couple of times, and you're like, look, I got a small business. I'm a YouTuber. I like what you're doing, but I really just need like some money so that I can keep doing what I'm doing, buy equipment, all that. And they're like, we would love to, except we love investing money anywhere except for where it would make a difference. But they said, you know what? We do have this nice cappuccino set we can send you home with that has the SERA logo. And then I'm like, ah, cool. I'll put that in my backdrop, I guess. And so then I continued to sell SERA products for the last, 4 years? And they had the SERA ONIP tab, which, you know, I do love. This is the spirulina version, which they ruined. And we never really got much support from them. That brand got more and more popular. More stores brought it on. And what happened was, now, let me see if I'm telling the story correct, because I don't want to intentionally lie. Just let me do my little research. There we go. Let's see. All right. So then, the great people of Team Aquarium Co-op, the brand ambassadors, you guys that buy it from us, you go, this food is great, we like it, and sales grow by leaps and bounds in the United States because they're a German brand that have been around for the past 40 years. 45 now probably, right? So here we are, it's about a year ago, and what do? They go, let's do the thing that pisses C.A.R.E off the most. If there was ever a way to piss C.A.R.E off, this is the way to do it. And it is to say, don't worry, we're going to work out a deal. We're going to make it worthwhile. We realize what you're doing is very valuable. You're helping us grow the brand. We've grown by leaps and bounds. Never been this good in America. What do? They go, let's take it to the website, C.A.R.E. They go, how about we just start selling directly to Amazon instead? We'll cut out all the middlemen since now it's been fully marketed and everyone loves it. We'll cut out everyone like Aquarium Co-op and all the other stores, and we'll just gut the price down to $3.49. And you go, well, C.A.R.E, no, that's not what they did. And they go, oh no, they did. I know how it works. It ships and is sold by Amazon.com, not fulfilled by Amazon.com. Like if I was to send it to Amazon and Amazon sells it for me, that is fulfilled by Amazon. No. This is straight up, they are selling it to Amazon so Amazon can cut everyone out and neuter the price, right? And they've done that on all their products. Now, normally that's not enough to just go, C.A.R.E throws in the towel, he's done. No, that's normally not enough. I can fight it. I can go, you know what? I've got a loyal fan base. I can hopefully buy in big enough quantity to be even semi-comparative to them, right? But then they changed the formula, and that's what I couldn't tolerate anymore. They made everything all natural, and it is not the same product anymore. We did a video and a live stream. If you guys are here for that, you saw we did side-by-side comparison. New ones were garbage. Old ones, amazing. And that's the direction we're taking the company. They literally in an email somewhere said something to the effect, because if I say it's an exact quote, I'm probably wrong. They said, essentially, people around the world now want to pay more and they will be more likely to buy a product that is organic. So we are moving all packaging and products that way so that we believe that is the way to go. regardless of making the products worse. So that's the story on how we got screwed. And, you know, it's happened more than once. And it's bad because it's like, you know, on one hand, I get it. I'm just a guy in front of a camera, right? I'm not a CEO of some giant company. I don't show up with a team of lawyers or anything. You know, when I go there, they got a whole team of people and they got giant buildings and they're, you know, oh, look how cool we are, right? But I do know that you guys trust what I say, and they know that too. They know I'll rant on them just as hard as I am right now as I will say buy this stuff. And I'll still say their food is still pretty good. It's worse than it used to be, but it's still pretty good. It's expensive, but it's still pretty good. All right? But they forced me to go, yeah, that's just not something I can really be behind anymore. You changed the formula. You've neutered the price. And the problem is for me, I'm an advocate for other small stores. And so behind the scenes, I'm telling other stores, look, if you sell what I promote, it's going to be an easier time for you in your store. Someone will watch a live stream or a video and go, hey, that's a cool product. By the way, when I was in a store in a different state, they had it. I picked one up off the shelf. They made money. The parent company, they got more sales. Everything worked out great. The minute they came in and they sell to, I think they might even be doing it to, let me see, did they go to, I think they went to Petco or Pet, it was either Petco or PetSmart. I think they started selling to them direct too. Yep, there it is. There's the proof. Boom, Petco. Now they sell it, right? So that's what happens is, and unfortunately, once recognition happens and they're like, oh man, the demand is super high. Let's just put it in, you know, let's just sell out everyone that helped get there, you know? And I just think that's a really crappy thing to do. Like, it's crappy to me. It's also crappy to you guys. Now, on one hand, you are getting a better price. I'm not going to say you're not, right? Because that $3.49 was an amazing buy price on the tabs, right? What is it here? Do they have them here? I've got them here, but they only have in this size, I guess, right? Do they have it in smaller sizes? Doesn't look like it. But it's a better price for you guys. But here's the problem with that. When you cut out and cut the price of the bone, there's never any room for a guy like me to pay Jimmy to edit a video and will help educate you guys and show you why it's good, why it's bad. Let you know that, like, did you know that the SERA tab, it has bloodworms in it, it has krill in it, it has gramaris in it, it has daphne in it, it has one of the secret ingredients is actually, what is it called? Is it honeysuckle? I think it's honeysuckle. Let me find it. Another thing, they put all their, it's got to be in here. It's only on the extended one. Anyway, you know, so we separated ways. We stopped selling their stuff because, so not only did they change it to the all natural, they raised the price, by the way. So they raised the buy price, all that kind of stuff. Didn't work out. All right. Do I consider tropical granu premium enough to sell? Tropical granu. I haven't tried it enough. I know Dean's done some testing. I've played with it a little bit, but I haven't done it in big enough quantities to like form an actual opinion. So initial testing, it looks like a pretty good food though. Now, someone's saying same thing with Fluval. I want to be very clear here. Fluval has got its own problems. But one thing Fluval has remained true to so far, they are not selling on Amazon. And they're not, you know, so, and they're actually trying to protect the price with the big box stores. That's a very important thing. You guys, as a consumer, a customer, we don't know how important that is, but that's where you watch brands disappear. So what happens? Basically, you take like a SERA company, and you go, we're going to sell to 100 different stores in the United States, right? And if Aquarium Co-Op goes out of business, they got 99 stores left to sell to, right? But you got 100 stores. Now you start selling on Amazon and Petco. Majority of the sales are going there. They're undercutting price. They're doing all these tactics, right, to gobble up margin. Stores like me drop out. Other stores drop out going, this stuff's not moving. We can't compete on price. Now you got 2 or 3 big spots up top and 2 or 3 little guys. Amazon dropped you. Revenue dropped by 50%. Petco drops you. Your revenue is down by 90%. The company now folds. SERA doesn't exist anymore, right? That's how that stuff happens. You guys are seeing it happen all the time. You just don't know it. Remember when Petcos and PetSmarts used to all sell EHEIM and that kind of stuff? Let's see if it's still there. Nothing at Petco. Let's go to PetSmart. EHEIM. Do they still have it? Come on, search faster. They do have a few things left. And I say a few things left. Let me tell you the behind the scenes stories on how this stuff goes down, because you guys don't follow it, probably like I do. So Petco has nothing left. PetSmart has these SKUs. You know what's missing? The feeder. You know what's missing? The classic EHEIM. All these things are missing. What happened, you say? Well, EHEIM was huge, right? EHEIM, if you've been in the hobby a long time, was dominating cancer filters and heaters. Ebo Jagger, dominating. 90s, early 2000s, dominated, right? Then they started striking up deals with the big boys. Remember when, what was it? National Geographic? That's the brand, right? Let's see. National Geographic. They might have already ditched that. But they had National Geographic brand, and it was all just rebranded EHEIM stuff, or a lot of it. I don't know if all of it was, but a lot of it was just like, look at this thing that is the exact same thing as an EHEIM, right? So you see that happen, and then you see Fluval start to wane, right? Because you get a big deal going with this big company, and you're making a lot of money. Then they pull out, and they go, nope, we're done. And now you've watched EHEIM just crash. You know, when you start looking for EHEIM products, like, I can't even buy them anymore. Wholesalers aren't carrying them. Why did the wholesaler stop carrying them? Because Petco was neutering the price and all that was going on. It didn't make sense for them to hold $500,000 in EHEIM products that weren't selling. So then they stopped selling it, which means I can't get it, which means I can't sell it, which means you're having a hard time getting it, right? So that's how this stuff starts going down, and you see this parasitic hobby happen. Well, form of business, right? I'll see if I can find the next thing. So like, you see this pump right here, and what does this pump look like? Well, let's look at the Waze air pump. Let me see if I can find right here. Looks mighty close to that, wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say this air pump right here? Look at that. Looks real close to this right here. Looking pretty close. Oh, what do you know? Out of stock, right? That's because EHEIM is pulled out of North America, basically. It doesn't make sense for them to be here anymore because not enough people are buying it. But there's a lot of parasitic things that go on, and you know, I try to be the advocate of like, look, this is a very long-term game. The hobby's been around a long time. It's going to be around a long time. Don't screw it up by getting hungry, right? Like, I could easily peddle our products into some of the, well, I shouldn't say easily, but I believe we could get some of these products picked up by some of the big box stores. We've got big brands that want to work with stuff like Easy Green and that kind of stuff, but we choose not to because we know it's the same reason I don't franchise. If I don't keep control over it, eventually someone goes, giant piles of money, I'm into that. I'm going to do that, and in the short term, it's great. In the long term, not good. And I want to see this happen over a long period of time where we continue to help the hobby, right? There's a lot of things we can do for money. That's there. We're lucky in that. But it's actually hard to do better in the hobby. And we try every day, but it's a very hard thing to do. And these companies, what I don't like is you do meet people that are just as passionate as I am, and they really want to do the best thing for the hobby ever. They've been working on it for 30 years. They're very passionate. And they got a team of people that care about profits and investors and all of that, and they overrule them. And so, you know, I won't call some company out by name, but I've got some dear friends in some companies who, you know, some of them I've traveled the world with, and I would take a bullet for, right? And they would take a bullet for me. And yet I can't even work with their company because their company is so, I don't know if it's money hungry, power hungry. It's just like, oh, geez, I cannot get involved with that kind of stuff. That's just not good. So, all right. My local Petco just started carrying Fritz products. Good. Fritz products are good products. You know, and so part of the thing is, I want everyone to carry the products. Like, I never want it so that, you know, like Amazon should be able to carry the products, you know, Fluval products, but don't let them undercut the price. Because Amazon and some companies will go, we'll sell it at a loss. If we do that for a few years, everyone else drops out, we'll crank up the price. Long term, it's bad for the hobby. Short term, good for the hobby. So that's where I like it when you guys can easily go get a product from anywhere. That is a really good thing. We need to maintain that it's profitable for people so your local fish store doesn't go out of business. So that Petco doesn't go out of business when Amazon brings it on. So the company that makes it doesn't go out of business when Amazon drops them, right? There's all these things that are very cutthroat in there that happen all the time. And I will say, there's probably a thing or two that I've missed. That story probably is not 100% accurate, just because it's not like I sat in on every board meeting and knew the inner workings of everything. But from my perspective, that's the way I saw it play out. And, you know, some of those people I was talking, or, you know, we were talking to. Some of them we weren't, right? My plants are developing holes. What could it be? Water quality is perfect. No, it's not. Fertilized liquid and tablets only affects 2 out of 12 species of plants. So there's no such thing as perfect water parameters, by the way. It doesn't exist. You have 12 different species. How could it be the same? You could say, my cooking is perfect. I have 12 people who live with me. Well, it's not perfect because not all of them think it's the best, right? So your water parameters are probably fairly normal. Like, they look at like what other people say it looks like. But by definition, you know, it's like saying, I'm rich, but I've got 2 bills that I don't pay. Like, well, what? If you have unlimited money, why are you paying? If you have perfect water quality, how could it possibly be that your plants are missing something? So it's not perfect. It's probably pretty common, pretty normal, looks good on paper, but maybe we're missing boron. You know, I'm full of boron. All I do is bore people, right? But you could be missing boron, you could be missing cobalt, other micronutrients out of your water that you don't test for, because we as hobbyists, we don't test for that. But in general, water is never perfect. It can be very good, can be very close, but your best test is actually your fish and your plants. How do they look? And right now they're showing you we're not so good. Therefore, they need some help. So I would say, you know, maybe a little water change, maybe what do I say? More fertilizer, that kind of stuff. So Joe Williams says, Amazon sells mad Fluval. All right, let me, you know, now to be fair, it could have changed in the last week. I do follow this quite a bit. All right, so let me take you on a trip. Here we are, we're on Amazon, right? Let me show you. So, here's a Fluval 407 canister filter. By the way, probably my favorite canister filter brand. I can't think of one I actually like more. I do like them quite a bit, right? But right here, you see this? Ships from Amazon. So Amazon's shipping it out, but it's sold by Pet Paradise Incorporated. That means Fluval did not sell it to Amazon. Fluval sold it to Pet Paradise Inc., and Pet Paradise Inc. is selling it on Amazon. That is a very, very big difference than Fluval selling directly to Amazon. Now, there is some things, like that's why brands create different brands, right? So there's Fluval, there's Marina, there's Exotera, there's all these lines. Some, they go, this is going to be an internet protected brand. This one, like Marina, won't be. We'll sell directly to Amazon with this one, but these ones we're going to protect, right? So, and not every product in every line is that way. But typically, brands that have been around a long time, they're realizing If you only sell to a select few sources, if they ever drop you, you lose massive portions of revenue, right? Let's look at this light, for instance, right? So $209.99 with free shipping from Amazon, right? What's Aquarium Co-op sell it for? Let's look. If I can use my own website, I need lights. Lights. Oh, it's Aquarium lights. There we go. Go right here. The 48-inch one. Click it. $209.99. So we sell at the same price, right? Well, how does that work? How does that come to be, you ask? All right, so let's look at the details. Ships from Amazon, but it's sold by Pro Products LLC, right? Who else is selling it? Let's take a look. We've got Pro Products LLC. We've got Marine and Reef, Josh's Frogs, saltwateraquarium.com, Country Fish Girl, Vector Aqua. Like, this guy sells it for $251. Don't buy it from that person, right? You got all these people selling it, and they're all at $209.99 or more. That's because Fluval is protecting the price, and they're not letting Aquarium Co-op go, hey, I've been selling your products for a long time. Sell it to me dirt cheap, and let me sell it cheaper than anyone else out there so I can ruin the market long term, and we'll do short-term gains, long-term failure, right? So it's a very nefarious thing when you're trying to track. And I'm not going to say, I could probably find, if I really dug, I could probably find a product, like maybe a Marina product, maybe. I don't know. I don't track the Marina products, Marina Aquarium products very well. So let's look at like, where's it good? Like this breeder box. Let's see if it's this thing. So yes, the Marina brand. Look right here. So it says, I remember. Amazon, ships from Amazon, sold by Amazon. So something like this for $12.61. And then what size? The medium one? That's not much more than I would ever pay for it. I could never ship this product and not lose money on it. So naturally that means, well, Corey, you're not going to sell products you lose money on. You're right, I'm not. So that's why we don't sell something like this. You know, so then they're not getting the extra publicity, except for like this live stream right now, and they're not going to do really well market long term. But you don't need all your products to do that. Sometimes you got to generate more revenue. Sometimes there's other things that got to go on. Everyone's got to do a business. But I just wanted to point that out that, you know, not everyone is selling through Amazon. People are trying to protect things, that kind of stuff. It's you know, the tide is changing. You know, companies are learning that, like, oh yeah, you know, the Walmart effect. We used to hear that a lot, where Walmart would do this kind of strong arm thing back in the day, and companies learned you could ramp up production. I bought twice as big warehouse. I have twice as many employees. Then Walmart stopped using me, and then I went out of business. Right? So now people are afraid of that, which is good. All right. Yes, so someone was asking, that's MAP, right? Yes. So MAP is minimum advertised price. That means that the lowest price we're allowed to advertise would be a MAP price. And that means as long as all the vendors do it, we don't go into a war with each other and make sure none of us are making money, right? So that's the goal. Now, on one hand, it's kind of bad for a consumer. Like, well, what if we could buy the light for $100? Wouldn't that be great? It would be great short term. Long term, Fluval would probably just go out of business, and the companies that are selling to you would go out of business. So long term, not a good solution. The goal is, how do we get a product that's made really well, developed really well, satisfies all your needs at an acceptable price, and someone was able to pay someone like Candy to make sure they could troubleshoot, my light's not connecting to my phone, what's going wrong? Ooh, as we heard earlier, my light, I think only the warm and the purple are working, the other ones aren't. Can I get a new one sent out? Let someone write out to you. We made a little bit of money by selling a bunch of them. We can afford to send you one out, no questions asked after you prove it, and you just throw that other light away. You don't have to send it back to us. We don't make you do all this crazy stuff. You didn't save the box, we're not giving you a new one. You didn't do this, we're not doing another one. You didn't have a unique UPC, we're not doing that. Like all those crazy things you've ever had to do to get a refund on something, we don't do that. Because we're able to make some money when we sell it. What about the ones that get lost in the mail? We're able to cover that. We're able to make relatively a trouble-free experience by being able to profit some. So that's why you kind of want the person selling it to you to make some money so that they can cover when things go wrong. If there's no money to be made, it becomes very cutthroat, like, oh, it's not working? Sorry, take it up with Fluval, right? Steenfot got my joke. Chlorophyll? More like borophyll. Yes. And John Powers joining the team? Thank you very much. Do you use Nerite snails only? No, we use Nerites, Malaysian trumpets, pond pest snails, mystery snails, and ram's horn snails. The old large marina breeder box I bought for $8.50 is now closer to $20 and is interestingly changed to the Fluval brand. So yes, you as a consumer are noticing some changes, right? So some changes would be if they change it to the Fluval brand, then they can break contracts they might have with some bigger people, like, oh, we'll sell you the Marina box, but we're going to brand it as Fluval now, right? And this Fluval one's at this price. So some different things can happen. We used to see that. Let me see if I can find that for you. What was it? It was Fluval Aqua Clear. So it used to be that, I believe, that only that Fluval Aqua Clears could be sold at PetSmart. I think it's still true, maybe. I'll show you guys. We'll see if this is true or not. It's something like this. I might be getting it slightly wrong, and it might now all be this, but we go here. So you see here, Fluval Aqua Clear Power Filter, right? Was only ever sold at PetSmart ever, right? But if you go back and you look at, oh, Chewy.com. Look at this. It's the Aqua Clear, not the Fluval branded one. Interesting, right? So they play all these little games with these brands. It's the same product, but we're putting a different box because maybe it's a different deal. Maybe this time it's with Petco or PetSmart. Maybe next time it's with Costco. Maybe the next one's with Walmart, right? All these little deals to make things happen. And why does that work? Because on Aqua Clear, there's a minimum advertised price, right? You can't sell it for less than this. We all kind of signed a contract on that. But the Fluval Aqua Clear, oh, that isn't controlled by the map. All of a sudden, someone could sell that below the price. The consumer goes, hey, I think this is the same thing. Looks like the same thing to me. Doesn't it look like the same thing to you guys? Looks real similar. Huh. Oh, wait, 70 gallon. Man. See, look, they're even using the same picture there. They don't even try to hide it. So that's how they play these games, right? And so you might go, well, oh, maybe that's why C.A.R.E doesn't sell Aqua Clears on the website. We sell them in the store. We don't sell them on the website because after shipping, there's no money to be made. If we sell them in the store, we make like $5, and they are the best hang-on back out there. I'm not afraid to say they are the best. But if I lose $5 to $7 every time I ship one, would you be doing work to lose money? I wouldn't either, right? So that's how that game gets played, unfortunately. And I hope they figure it out long term so that, you know, like we're a pretty good small store with an online business. You can imagine, what if you're just your local fish store down the road is trying to compete with this? It's much harder. All right. Can a brine shrimp tub overwinter where I am? No, it gets too cold. Well, I've tested it once. That 1 year it got too cold. I'm on the north coast of California and probably have pretty similar weather as far as year-round temps. You could put a top on it and then maybe put the air line from inside your building so it got a little bit of warm air, so it's trapping that warm air. The sunlight coming through traps that in. You might be able to get yourself through a winter that way. I never tried that hard, mostly because I was like, well, it's cold and raining outside. I don't want to go collect brine shrimp and get wet to go feed my fish. But if you don't do anything, a lot of times you'll just get more brine shrimp from the eggs that they lay at the end of the season, starting up again next year. So, works out for me. Supposedly Chewy and PetSmart are the same company. Yeah, I mean, we can go down the conspiracy rabbit hole. You guys don't know that most companies are basically owned by two conglomerates, Spectrum Brands and other stuff. Aqueon, Marineland, Tetra, all owned by the same company. Some people go, I would never use a Tetra tank. I only use Aqueon. They're the same company. I only use Marineland. It's owned by the same company. Different warehouses do make them, but if you think the guy at the top cares more about Aquarium or marine land than another, they don't. They're only looking at who's making money, who's not making money, what deals. Ooh, we'll sell Aquarium to PetSmart. We'll sell marine land to Petco. That way they're not competing against each other. Ooh, the $1 a gallon sale a couple years ago. We'll do all Tetra tanks so it doesn't undermine the Aquarium tanks. But the Tetra tanks, that warehouse sucked so much that all the tanks were leaking. They had to end that. Then they came back to Aquarium. Like the games, people. They're just maddening when you're a store owner just going, I'm just trying to, I had a hobbyist walk in. They want to set up an aquarium. It's the first one. Why can't you just make this easy? Why you got to game the system? Like, why can't we just, do an honest day's work with a fair business and let everyone compete in a healthy ecosystem? I work towards that every day. Isn't it like Central Garden and Pet or something like that? They're owned by the conglomeration. What happens is you get people that start winning, and then they have so much money, they watch someone not winning, and they go, I could buy that real cheap. All right, let me do that. Ooh, let me do that one too. Ooh, let me do that one too. Ooh, let me do that one too. Right? That's how it happens. And so you get this huge, you wouldn't realize that the company that owns Aquarium also owns Raid, right? Like Raid bug spray. Let's see, Spectrum Brands. We only got 8 minutes left. I gotta be quick. Quick like cat. So, let's see. Let's go to the website. Here we are, Spectrum Brands. What are our brands, you ask? Oh, Global Pet Care. What's that? All right. Let's see here. Oh, Aquatics, Tetra, Marineland, Glowfish, Instant Ocean, Jungle, Omega 1. That's just to name a few. Well, what else do these companies do? Eukanuba, Litter Maid. Oh, EHEIMS. Okay, ProSense, Fruminator, Nature's Miracle, Healthy Hide, Good and Fun. Okay. What else do they do? Quickset Doors? Oh, okay. National Hardware? Okay. Home and Garden. Oh, Hot Shot, Spectracide, Cutter. Oh, Black Flag, which is, kill more bugs and stuff. All right. Oh, what else do they do? Oh, Remington, Black & Decker, Russell, George Foreman, Breadman, Juice Man? You probably didn't realize when you're buying a Marineland tank, it's being backed by some of these super corps, right? And this is just the ones they're putting on the website. They're buying and acquiring things all the time. Let me use an example that we know in the aquarium hobby, right? What happened when Jungle got bought? Oh yeah, all their products went away. You watched basically most of this stuff become Tetra products. Like, I think I only ever see Jungle products, a very limited range, at Walmart's now. I think they pretty much only do Walmart stuff. Maybe like Fred Meyer's too. And so you might think like, well, what happened to, didn't they make some good products? They made Bag Buddies, which was an amazing additive when you sold fish. They used to make that. They used to make, what was it? There was a med we used all the time. It was super good, and then they stopped making it. They still have the net soak, which is nice. Yeah. What'd they do to Tetra? Well, once they got bought out, it's actually illegal for me to sell any Spectrum brand product online. But you say, hey, there's some for sale online. Yep. I bet you if we type in Tetra, guess what? Why would they only allow like a PetSmart and Petco to sell Tetra products? Oh, that's right. Maybe because they're all owned by giant supercorps that play that game together. Yep. That's the game. We're not part of it, unfortunately, as hobbyists. We just have to deal with the aftermath. So, that's Spectrum Brands for you. All right. Clout was made by Mardell, which Fritz bought Mardell, and luckily they're still making most of their products. Clout doesn't get made anymore because one of the source ingredients is wicked difficult to get, and the FDA doesn't really want to allow it anymore. So that's why we can't get Clout. Great anchorworm product though. What size of tank is needed for 2 red-eye puffers? I got a male and a female. Someone has them up for rehoming. I would say Well, red-eye puffer is a generic term for a bunch of different types of puffers. I would say, depending on the type, maybe as small as a 29, but I would say more like a 40 breeder. Some are crazy aggressive, and some are a little more docile, but there's like 4 different puffers that get sold as a red-eye puffer. So, without knowing the individual species, even then, if you gave me the species name, I have to look it up and go, hold on, let me refresh. I haven't kept all 4 different red-eye puffers, so I couldn't, I couldn't say exactly what to do without doing some more research. Stream about to get flagged. Corey shut down. Speaking too much truth. It's true, honestly. I do fear that. Like, when I talk about this stuff, I'm always worried, like, is someone going to try and sue me? Do I say the wrong thing? Like, part of you guys being members allows me to, by kicking in that $5, if we ever have legal costs or something, like, hopefully it's not horrible. And, and being able to just do the true thing instead of like, oh my gosh, we're going to go out of business. I got to pay rent. Let's compromise morals to make money. The whole goal is to just do an honest day's work in business, and we try very hard to do that. I'm sure there's times when we fall short, but, I try to do things in a wholesome way, and that's, it's the same reason. Like, we only brought 2,000 of these in. Why? Because if it went horribly wrong, I couldn't lose $50,000. That's just not a loss we could ever take, right? We don't have big boy money. We don't have people to help make sure things get through. So, you guys are going to hopefully buy these up, and we'll go, yes, we made some money. We're going to put all that money right back into buying more brine shrimp and hopefully getting even a better deal going, I hope. Because brine shrimp, there's not a lot of money made in brine shrimp. That's why there's not a lot of different brine shrimp sellers. Not a lot of money in it. Do you have any or know when you'll be getting more of Dean's German Blue Rams in my store? That I'm not 100% sure. You'd want to check the forum. So if you go to our website, let me go right here. You go to our website and you click menu. If you click forum, that'll bring you to our forum. You scroll down here and you go to the Aquarium Co-Op retail store announcements. That's where we're telling you basically what fish come in, and like sometimes Dean will post. I think he posted a while ago. Where do I see my Dean? Right here. So he posted when he delivered some fish on August 7th. He doesn't always do it, but he'll, like, these were his midnight rams. Let's see what else he's got. Gold rice fish, L333s. So that kind of stuff. So you can get some updates there, and then you get to see basically what we're bringing in each week. You can see this, and then Robert will take some pictures on some things because sometimes people ask, or we haven't had them in a while, or it's something rare. Yeah, and you can also ask questions, and then Robert will get back to you. And so this would be a great place to go, oh, Robert, do you have, or Dean, are your rams at the shop right now? And then hopefully someone will get back to you. And I say hopefully because that's not their job to sit there all day and wait for people to ask, but they do try to keep an eye on it. All right. We got about 1 minute to go, and then we're all going to head over to Steenfod Aquatics, and we're going to use hashtag STT, Season Tank Time. Hashtag STT. Cameron joining the team, thank you very much. Your business plan of being honest, selling products you use and believe in is one of the reasons I spend my money with the co-op. That's the hope. The hope is we just try and do an honest business each day. People will support us for doing that. I totally have been there and get it when you're like, hey, I got to buy it from the cheaper source. That's what my income dictates, and whatever has got to make sense in your family, I get it. I totally get it. But when it comes down to, I hope if it's like for the same price, if you're gonna buy that Fluval light for $209.99, you could buy it off Pet Pros LLC or whatever that was on Amazon, or maybe you buy it from us, same price. We'll ship it wicked quick, just like Amazon would, and we get those few profits so that we can put on more live streams, make more videos, and help educate more people, design more products, right? I have no idea. Maybe Pet Pros LLC or whatever that was will do the same thing. Maybe they're saving the world with that money. I have no idea. I can only know what we do with our money. You guys you only get a glimpse of what we're doing with our money. But for the most part, we've been going for 5 years online, and when we say we're going to do something, it might happen 3 years later, but by golly, for the most part, we get it done. Some of these are very long-term projects, but we try to actually do what we want, unless we get new information that makes it impossible or something. But we're still trying to ship to the rest of the world, trying to launch these products, trying to do better things. Someday, I want to develop the best hang-on back filter, you know. Might be 10, 15 years away. Who knows? All right. Recommendations for 110-gallon, 3-foot wide by 2-foot tall tank. 2 foot tall, okay. 3 foot wide. That's got to be like 2 feet to 30 inches front to back. What would I do in that? I would probably do, to me that sounds like a really good African cichlid tank. I would recommend purple ACI and yellow labs, a good display. Get yourself a Synodontis catfish and maybe like a trio of clown loaches. That's kind of the tank I would play with if I was doing that. When Extreme sent to the UK, would you camp at mine? Camp at mine. At your store, maybe? Not sure. But I'm hoping to reach the UK and Australia next year, and hopefully, so like Extreme gets it, right? They realize we're helping launch their brand, which is good. Like, they've been out a long time. They make amazing food, but they never really understood the marketing part of it. Like, or I'm not gonna say they didn't understand it. They never got that breakthrough of like, oh, it's working, right? Because their food has been amazing and is amazing still. Now with my marketing piece of it, of like, hey, you should buy this. I like it. It's amazing. I feed it in my fish room, and legit, I do feed it in my fish room. It's good food. But then they realize like, oh, well, let's keep working with Corey. Let's send them to the UK. Let's send them to Australia, markets we want to reach out to. Let's do events there. Let's, you know, and so when I go and I speak in person at events, I go, hey, we send a bunch of food so I can give it away. Why not? Right? Let's do double duty while I'm here. Give stuff away. And they've been real receptive to that. So I want to say thank you to Extreme for that, because officially they sponsor me. Yes, they send me some fish food. We do buy from them. We do sell their product. You know, we have that relationship. That's different. But they do send it to me. And that makes it easy. So when I say this is a whole paid promotion, yes, they send me probably $30 or $40 worth of food a month to feed my aquariums. Now, I'll tell you right now, if their food wasn't good, I would feed something else. I can, you know, when you get to a channel this size, you can reach out to any aquarium company and go, if you send me your food, I'll feed it on camera. And then like truckloads of food will show up. So I willingly choose Extreme because I like their work ethic and I really like their food. I love that krill flake. That krill flake, it's, you know, until I found that they had it, it was something that was missing from my hobby. I was like, why doesn't someone make the best possible flake food? Like, why does flake food have to be cheap, 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 cheap? SERA was making the next best one, but that krill flake, just smelling it, you go, that smells like fish are gonna breed. Oh, it's so good. I love that flake food. I mean, I like their other foods too, but that flake food, it's off the chart good. You know, if you haven't tried it yet, I highly recommend it, obviously. You know, I really like it. It's expensive. I feed a lot of it, but my totes, my fish are breeding like gangbusters, and that's important to me. So, all right, guys, we're heading over to Steenfot Aquatics. Go show them some love. I'm going to hang out, probably, you know, watch my wife cook, or hopefully maybe she's got dinner ready. Who knows? But I'll be lurking around in there a little bit, listen to what's going on. You know, hit them with the hashtag STT, so he knows that we sent you and that our team is there and we can converse with each other. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Hopefully you guys get some brine shrimp and maybe a timer if you need them. If not, I understand. I hope everyone's being safe out there. I hope work's starting to return to normal for you and you get a normal, you know, maybe normal thing going on at home with kids and all that. I know it's a weird time right now. You know, I'm moving. Stuff's weird at my place. And so I'm finding these live streams to be very therapeutic. Couple hours doing what I like to do, and that is just hang out and be a fish nerd and not have to worry about these other things. Yeah, hashtag STT, and we'll see you over there. Thanks, guys.